Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael Leister. I'm the Deputy Director of Criminal Justice Improvements at the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. Today, we're going to be discussing the fiscal year 2025-26 Improving Justice System Responses to Substance Use Disorders Funding Opportunity. So during our time today, we hope to address any questions you have about this solicitation, as well as the application process. Joined by a few of my colleagues today, Ali Gantz, Jen Bowser, and Abby Carter. If we could go to the next slide, please. It's just a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we dive in. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on PCCD's website and YouTube channel once it becomes available. Please check your audio settings and make sure you can hear today's presentation using your computer or other device. Additionally, you can hear us, but we can't hear you, and attendees will remain muted during today's presentation. If you have questions regarding today's presentation or the funding announcement, please email PCCD staff at ra-pccdd-ocjsi@pa.gov. Questions submitted to that resource account will be included in our funding announcement Q&A document on our active funding announcements webpage. You can also enter any questions you have today into the Q&A box. So at the top, if you click on the Q&A button, you should be able to enter any questions that you have about today's presentation there, and we'll address those later on. Next slide, please. So what we'll cover today, we're going to give you a brief overview of PCCD, talk about the grant program, review the funding announcement, talk about navigating the application process and e-grants, and then get into questions and answers. So next slide, please. So we're going to start with a quick overview of PCCD. If we can move to the next slide. The Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, or PCCD, serves as the justice planning and policymaking agency for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. PCCD's responsibilities and programs fall into a number of different areas, including funding and grants, technical assistance, data and research, victims compensation, and training, among other responsibilities. So this slide shows a snapshot of what PCCD's grant funds have supported in recent years, with the overarching goal of addressing both emerging and long-standing public safety challenges. If you're interested in learning more about these areas, I'd encourage you to check out our website at pccd.pa.gov. Next slide, please. So we're now going to move into the grant program and talking about the Federal State Opioid Response Grant Program, or SOAR. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the State Opioid Response Grant, again, or SOAR, is a federal funding stream administered by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. SOAR supports states in addressing opioid use disorder, stimulant use disorder, and the overdose crisis. At the state level, SOAR is administered by the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, or DDAP. Through the Improving Justice System Responses to Substance Use Disorder funding announcement, we're aiming to expand access to a wide range of evidence-based practices and programs for justice-involved individuals with opioid use disorder or stimulant misuse. So Jen's going to provide more info on these practices and programs later on in the webinar. Would just like to note that for purposes of SOAR, if either an opioid or stimulant misuse problem or history exists concurrently with other substance use, all substance use issues may be addressed. Individuals with no history of or no current issues with opioids or stimulants misuse shall not receive treatment or recover services with SOAR funds. So on this slide, if you click on the right-hand slide, it'll take you directly to the Improving Justice System Responses to SUD funding announcement. And if we can move on to the next slide. So one of the requirements of SOAR funding that I want to highlight for you all today is the SAMHSA Unified Performance Reporting Tools, or SPERT. So yesterday, DDAP officially transitioned from the Government Performance and Results Act, or GPRA tool, to SPERT. This transition was made to reduce respondent burden and improve data consistency, streamline workflows and reduce completion time, improve data accuracy, and enhance reporting and provide better insights. So for purposes of these grants and any SOAR-funded activities, SPURT is going to consist of two forms, the SPURT A and the SPURT C. So SPURT A facilitates the collection and reporting of client-level data at baseline, reassessment, annual, and closeout time points. The SPURT A is completed by program staff to collect and report on SOAR-funded services provided to clients and is required for all clients receiving services through SOAR grant funding. The SPURT C collects standardized data about the client, including demographics, social drivers of health, and measures of recovery, capital, quality of life, and client goals influenced by the services received. The SPURT C is administered by the client or completed by a caregiver, and there are specific forms depending on the client's age at baseline, assessment point, and whether a client, proxy, or caregiver or parent is completing the assessment. So like GIPRA, and those who have experience with GIPRA in the past, grantees will use the PA WITS system to enter SPURT information. On September 22nd, DDAP held a SOAR SPURT technical assistance call. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you can click on the DDAP SOAR SPURT technical assistance call link. That'll take you directly to a YouTube recording of that call. If you click on a picture of the PowerPoint slide, it will take you to the PowerPoint presentation they used during that call. And you can also click on the additional DDAP links to take you to their webpage with SPURT resources. For any grantees that are ultimately selected through this funding announcement, we'll provide additional information and connections with DDAP to facilitate SPURT reporting. So next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jen Bowser, and she's going to give us a review of the funding announcement document itself. Jen?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar this morning. Next slide, Abby. Okay, I will start by reviewing the upcoming important dates for this funding announcement. The deadline for questions is October 24th, 2025. Please be sure to send all your questions to the resource account included in the funding announcement document. PCCD staff will respond to all questions through a question and answer document that is posted on our website and will be updated as we receive questions. To date, we have received 4 questions about the funding announcement through the resource account. The current Q&A on our website was updated on 9/29. We will update the Q&A document after this webinar. The deadline for applications to be submitted is October 31st, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. All applications must be submitted electronically through PCCD's e-grant system. Over the course of the fall, PCCD and subject matter experts will review all applications received through this solicitation. Applications recommended for funding will be presented to full commission for review and approval on December 10th, 2025. After the competitive process is completed and applications approved by the full commission, successful applicants should expect PCCD staff to engage with them in finalizing budgets, which could include reductions, modifications, and/or additions of budgeted items. Once budgets are finalized and applications are approved, all grants will have a start date of January 1, 2026. All right, next slide. As outlined in the funding announcement, moving to the funding availability, $12 million in federal SOAR 4 funds is being announced to support this initiative. PCCD expects to fund up to 24 grants of $500,000 or less over an 18-month project period. As outlined in the funding announcement, applicants must develop their budgets utilizing 2 separate 9-month periods. This is important to pay attention to. The initial 9-month period will be from January 1, 2026 to September 29, 2026. The second 9-month period will be from September 30, 26 to June 30, 27. In the budget section of the application, year 1 should be the initial 9-month period and year 2 will be the second 9-month period. Unexpected funds budgeted in the first 9-month period cannot be carried over to the second 9-month period. Next slide. Who is eligible to apply? Counties and nonprofits are eligible to apply under the solicitation. Applicants must demonstrate that proposals were developed, supported by the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, or CJABs, and single county authorities, SCAs, relevant to the proposed project service area. In addition, applicants must also identify the proposed project partners within their application and provide letters of support, memorandums of understandings, or similar documentations of commitment within the required attachment section of e-grants. Applicants must be in good standing with PCCD to be eligible for these funds. The applicant and recipient agency's historical success in implementing PCCD fund programs or initiatives that met their intended goals will be considered in the review process. Applicants are not required to have a prior funding history with PCCD to be eligible. This may include, but is not limited to, compliance with PCCD program and fiscal reporting requirements, state and federal funding guidelines, and acceptable risk ratings as determined by PCCD. Next slide. Eligible activities. Funding under this solicitation is intended to support a wide range of programs, activities, and initiatives designed to improve outcomes for individuals with SUD and/or co-occurring disorders who encounter the justice system. Examples of potential approaches, programs include, but are not limited to, the following: comprehensive diversion programs, such as pre-arrest, pre-adjudication, pre-trial, that identify people with substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders who interact with the justice system and redirecting them from arrest and/or incarceration via linkages to community-based treatments and supports. Treatment courts serving adults and juveniles with SUDs. Embedding community services such as treatment services like medications for opioid use disorder and cognitive behavioral therapy within pre-booking arrest and pre-arrest response protocols. Individualized transition planning for individuals detained in jail and awaiting adjudication, including linkages to community-based treatment, resources, and support services, such as supportive housing, supported employment, trauma services, integrated treatment for SUD, co-occurring mental health issues. Advancing harm reduction strategies and peer recovery support, such as the use of CRSs, focused on individuals' recent release from jail or incarceration and other vulnerable justice-involved populations. Co-response models, diversion outreach, and other law enforcement-led interventions, services, and tools designed to support diversion and specialized responses. Embedding services within correctional settings to reduce barriers to care, such as providing on-site treatment and care, with a goal of linking individuals to a network of community-based resources and partners. Initiatives that pilot or expand coordinated systems of care for justice-involved individuals with SUD, such as one-stop shop initiatives or models. Advancing promising strategies to improve outcomes and reduce access barriers for individuals with SUD who are under community supervision. Training, technical assistance, and professional development for relevant justice-related and behavioral health practitioners. Strategies to improve data sharing protocols, integrated case management, and other practices between courts, probation, and treatment providers. Applicants will be asked to identify the categories from the list above that is the most applicable to their projects that they're proposing. Next slide. Priority considerations. Priority considerations will be given to eligible applicants proposing initiatives that pilot or expand coordinated systems of cares for individuals with SUD and/or related co-occurring disorders, such as one-stop shop initiative models. PCCD will prioritize requests for funding to support projects or initiatives in areas of the Commonwealth with the highest historical levels or rates of drug overdose incidents and fatalities, as well as areas that have experienced a recent increase in overdoses. PCCD will consider the number of incarcerated individuals and/or people under community supervision with substance use disorders and/or co-occurring disorders. In addition, PCCD will prioritize funding for counties requesting funds to support new initiatives that have a clear nexus to gaps or needs as demonstrated by local plans and assessments, as well as those that have not received funding previously from PCCD to support the proposed activities. For example, supporting a new jail-based medication for opioid use disorders program that has not previously received financial support from PCCD, or piloting new supports for individuals with OUD, SUD who are on community supervision. In addition to reviewer scores, the other factors that may be considered including geographical diversity, other applications received for similar activities in the region, the applicant's compliance history with PCCD fiscal and program reporting, if applicable, the applicant's historical success in implementing PCCD funded program initiatives that met their intended goals and available funding. Next slide. I am going to pass it back to Michael to walk you guys through navigating the application process and e-grants.
Thanks, Jen. So where do I start with the application process and with e-grants? So if we can go to the next slide, please. First, we're going to hit it on what's required in the application. Um, so there are 5 scored sections within your application. First is the executive summary at 5 points, your budget at 20 points, the applicant overview at 15 points, the proposed service areas and target populations at 20 points, and your project description totaling 40 points. There's also a required attachment section, which is not scored, but will include the attachments that are required for your application. I just really want to highlight and encourage everyone, please thoroughly review the funding announcement document. It's included on PCC's active funding announcement page. It's also posted with the funding announcement in eGrants. It's included a direct link in this PowerPoint presentation. The funding announcement document outlines all the required and scored sections for the application, gives you a ton of other details about the application itself. So we can move to the next slide, please. So the actual application process itself and how do you submit an application? So all eligible applications must submit applications using PCCD's eGrant system. The final recommendation of projects will be made following the receipt and review of applications in eGrants. And as a reminder, applications must be submitted in the eGrant system by 11:59 p.m. on Friday, October 31st, 2025. We can move to the next slide, please. So if you never worked in eGrants before, here's how you get started. So first step, you need to create an eGrants account. Step number 2, you need to register your organization in eGrants. And step number 3, you need to request roles in eGrants to make sure you have the right users and permissions set up to work in the application. We'll just highlight that user roles are not automatically added to all new applications in eGrants. So every application you start in eGrants, you need to request user roles for that application. If we can move to the next slide, please. So on the left, this is what our website looks like. And for user registration, if you're on our homepage and you click on the eGrants resources link, for creating an eGrants username, eGrants uses the Keystone login. So you can click on the PCCD eGrants Keystone login and registration walkthrough guide. That'll give you a step-by-step guide and process of how to register for eGrants. Um, if you have never registered and worked in eGrants before, but you have worked in other Commonwealth systems that utilize a Keystone login, eGrants will use those Keystone login credentials. So if you do work in other Commonwealth systems, you can try out that username and password, and if it works, that is your Keystone login, and you'll be good to go. You won't need to register. But if you've never worked in eGrants, you've never worked in another Commonwealth system, you will need to create that Keystone login to be able to log into the eGrants system. Next slide, please. So after you have your users registered, the second piece is the agency registration. So again, from our homepage, you can go to that eGrants resources link. Would note that your agency must be properly registered in eGrants if you intend to apply for the grant. If you're an existing agency that's applied before, you don't have to worry about this. If you're on this call and this is your first time applying for a PCCD grant, you need to register your agency. So you can complete the eGrants agency registration request form, which there's a link directly right here. And on the right of the screen gives you a little screenshot of what that form looks like. Just want to note that authorized officials are persons with contract signing authority. So generally that's the executive director or head administrator of the agency. Once you complete this form, you can send it to the resource account ra-egrantsupport@pa.gov. If we can go to the next slide, please. And so once you have your users registered, and then you have your agency registered, then again, you have to have the proper user roles. So there are 6 unique user roles within the eGrant system included on your screen. So you have your financial creator and reader. The difference between those is the creator can view and create fiscal information, while the reader can just view the fiscal information. Same thing on the program side. You have your program creator and reader. The creator can view and create program information, while the reader can only view that program information. You have your submission role, which allows you to submit grant forms like applications, project modifications, continuations, and then you have your user manager, which can manage user roles for the agency's grants. So even if you have the user manager role, you're still going to need other roles if you're performing other duties. Generally, I'd say if you're going to be doing everything in the grant from fiscal reporting to program reporting to submitting project modifications, you will want the financial creator, program creator, and submission roles. Generally, that's what I recommend to all my folks. And if we can move to the next slide, please. So if your agency does not have a current user manager, you're going to need to complete the new user role request form. There's a link on this slide. And to the right is what this form looks like. They'll fill in all the information. You can see there's a little box for agency user manager there in the middle of that screenshot. And they can return that completed form to the RA-egrant support at pa.gov. If your agency does have a current user manager, there's an eGrants role request walkthrough. That'll take you through the steps to submit a role request in eGrants. Say you need the submission role. It'll tell you how to go through the eGrants steps to request that role. And once that role is requested, it'll be routed to your user manager for the agency for their approval. And that will show up in their work manager in eGrants. Next slide, please. So the user manager role, so every agency should have an agency user manager security role. The user manager, again, approves role requests and maintains existing security for users already established within their agency. We do have a user manager help guide, and you can click on the link on the screen to take a look at that. If we go to the next slide, please. And just a tip for everyone, every agency must register at least 2 users in order to complete their grant application. If you only have one user registered for your agency, you are not going to be able to submit your application in eGrants. So please make sure you have at minimum 2 users registered in the system. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions, you need assistance with eGrants, first you can contact the eGrants Help Desk Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Their email address is ra-egrantsupport@pa.gov. You can also give them a call at 717-787-5887. I cannot stress the 4 p.m. Time that the help desk is open till enough. Um, if you decide to wait to the last day of the application period on October 31st to submit your application and you have an issue after 4 p.m., the eGrants help desk will not be available. So please work on your applications. If you have any issues, contact them during working hours. But again, can't stress enough that after 4 p.m., they will not respond to email or phone calls. On this page, we also have a couple QR codes. If you scan those, they'll take you directly to these links. The first one is our link to getting started in eGrants. The second is for our applicant resources. And the third is for our grant application walkthrough. Um, Again, would really just encourage everyone to not only read the funding announcement document, but also if you're a new eGrants user, I'd really encourage you to take a look at our website. There are a ton of resources for how to use eGrants, how to complete specific sections. The number of walkthroughs are almost countless on there. There are a ton of resources. So if you, as a new user, get stuck, you have questions, again, you can contact the help desk, but I also would really encourage you to take a look at our website because there's probably some type of user guide or walkthrough that can help with your issue. So if we could go to the next slide, please. And now I think what probably everyone's been waiting for is our FAQ. And if we could go to the next slide. Um, so how do you ask questions? So again, today's webinar, if you have any questions, you can enter them in the Q&A, and we'll address those momentarily. Um, as a reminder, webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website when it's available. So please feel free to refer back to this information if needed. You can also email PCCD staff at any time at ra-pccd-ocjsi@pa.gov. Any new questions coming into this count will be answered and then also posted on our online Q&A page, which is also linked here on this slide. So we encourage you to check out the Q&A before reaching out, because your question may have already been asked and answered. So we go to the next slide, please. So some of the questions that we've received so far, or are organizations able to apply to this opportunity and a VIP cycle within the same year? So for those who don't know, VIP, Violence Intervention Prevention grants, yes, the answer is yes. What about with RSAT? For those who might not be familiar, we have an open 2026 residential substance abuse treatment program funding announcement that is due, I believe, October 8th. That's specifically for county jail-based medications for opioid use disorder programs. The answer is yes. You can apply for RSAT, and you can also apply for the Improving Justice System Responses to SUD funding announcement. Next question, is a partnership with a nonprofit organization required in the application? No. If you are a county who is applying for this funding announcement, you do not have to work with a nonprofit organization. Third question, can a single county authority support more than one application from different nonprofits in their county? Yes. CJABs and SCAs are not limited to the number of applications that they can submit within their county. We also received some questions last night that we didn't include on the slide, but I'm going to go over them right now. So first, how can our organization, a newly registered nonprofit organization with a clearly defined mission and vision, and a team of highly experienced and competent professionals, best demonstrate its organizational capacity, credibility, and readiness to meet the PCCD solicitations requirements, particularly in the areas that prioritize past performance in collaboration with CJABs and SCAs? So due to the competitive nature of the funding announcement, we're kind of limited in what questions we can and can't answer. So this is really a question we can't provide a specific answer. But with that in mind, I'd say that within the sections of the application, you will have the opportunity to make your case as an organization and provide detailed info on your background, your capability, your credibility, and readiness. Um, I'd also say that applicants are not required to have a prior funding history of PCC to be eligible. So whether you're a new organization or you have existing relationships with your CJAB and your SCA, I'd say for both, now is a great time to get in contact with them. For new organizations, especially, really great time to start that relationship and engage a CJAB and SCA in planning efforts. The next question, is this funding opportunity for outpatient providers providing reentry, SUD, IOP, and reentry treatment? Um, so the answer, if the outpatient provider is a nonprofit organization, I would encourage them to apply. Next question, can we apply while awaiting approval of a 501c3 application? So if that application is approved by the application deadline of October 31st, then yes. If not, unfortunately, no. In that situation, the application would not be considered a nonprofit organization and therefore not an eligible applicant. Next question is, what's the page limit for the narrative and full application? So again, as we just went over during the presentation today, application is completed in our online e-grant system. There are various sections you're required to complete. Within each section, character limits are established for each question. So if you go into a section, you look at the narrative box to the right of that, there should be a golden gavel icon. If you hover over that icon, you'll be able to see if a response to that question is required and also the character limit for that question. We got two questions related to housing. So will this funding be for housing as well? And can we use this funding for transitional housing for individuals coming out of our justice system or straight from treatment? Individuals feeling supported as soon as their home is so important. So again, this was covered a little bit earlier, and due to the competitive nature of the funding, not really a question that we can answer. However, would point you to the potential approaches and programs outlined on page 6 of the funding announcement document. And again, just can't stress enough how important it is to take a read through that whole thing. Be very familiar with that funding announcement document. Next question, can funding be used for an independent evaluator to manage data collection? Yes, we would consider this as administrative costs, which are allowable. However, applicants are strongly encouraged to only budget for costs necessary for project implementation. And now I'm going to take a look at the Q&A from today's webinar. If you all give me a minute to pull this up. Looks like we just have one question from Brandy Harrison. As SCA, we were approached by multiple community nonprofit organizations about partnering supporting applications for solicitation. Our SCA is able to support more than one application if they're from different organizations and for different services. And I think we hit this already, but yes, the answer to that question, SCAs are not limited in the number of applications that they can support. And that looks like it for the Q&As today. If you have any, looks like maybe one new one came through. So who is representative body of local criminal justice authority in Philadelphia? Beth, if you want to email the resource account, the RA-PCCD-OCJSI, we can provide contact information. If you have questions about who to contact at your Criminal Justice Advisory Board or SCA, please reach out to the resource account and we can provide that information. So we go to the next slide, please, and we'll just leave the Q&A active. If anything comes in here in the next 30 seconds to a minute or so, we'll address those. But otherwise, some additional funding resources. Again, a couple QR codes here for you all to scan. You can also click on these within the PowerPoint presentation. But first is the PA Grants dashboard. If you're ever interested in seeing what grants are out there and being supported by PCCD, you can take a look there. The second one is our active funding announcements page. We've mentioned this multiple times, but this page lists all the active funding announcements that are currently open at PCCD. The funding announcements themselves are included as links on that page. And that's also where you can find the Q&A documents for every funding announcement. So I'd encourage you to go take a look at the active funding announcements page if you've never seen it before. And the last Q&R code is to sign up for eGrants alerts. If you go to this and sign up, it'll send you email alerts for any time a new funding announcement new funding announcement itself opens in eGrants. And looks like we got a couple more questions coming in, so I'll just address these quickly. Is there an expected number of individuals to be served over the grant period? So PCCD doesn't establish an expected number, but we do within our performance measures and within the application ask you to provide the expected number of folks to be served over the grant period. So it's not something we establish, but something that we ask you as the applicant to provide for us. So when will this webinar and slides be posted on the PCCD website? I would assume within the next day or two. But I believe Allie will probably send an email out to all of the webinar participants as well. And do I need a letter of support and collaborate with an SCA or a letter of support from my CJAB suffice? You're good with one or the other. We'd encourage you to obviously work with both your Criminal Justice Advisory Board or the SCA. But if you have a letter of support from your CJAB or your letter of support from your SCA, you're good to go.
Michael, did you see the question from Clayton?
I may have missed it.
I
Oh, and it
apologize
looks
for
like
missing.
there looks like a couple, sorry, that loaded through. Um, the notification mentions SUD in multiple places. Am I correct that we can only serve persons with SUD or co-occurring disorders if they are also using opioids? So for purposes of SOAR, it's folks who are using opioids or stimulants. If they have opioid or stimulant misuse and also have uh, other SUD or co-occurring disorders, they can be served with SOAR funding. Unfortunately, if there is no opioid or stimulant use, those folks cannot be served with SOAR dollars. Looks like there was also a question from Antoinette regarding SCA support or partnerships. Is this limited to providers who are credentialed with a managed care organization only? Um, no, if there's a nonprofit organization that comes to you and the SCA, reviews their program and feels like they should support it, then you can feel free to do that. They don't have to be credentialed with an MCO. I believe that's all of the questions that we've received. Um, Again, if you have any questions after today's webinar, please feel free to reach out to the resource account. Again, that's ra-pccd-ocijsi at pa.gov. As Jen said earlier today, we will be updating the current Q&A document with all the questions that we went over during today's webinar. Um, and we will update regularly with any questions that come through that resource account. Typically, we try to update that document every other day, as long as questions are coming through. So if you submit a question to the resource account, typically within 24 to 48 hours, there will be an updated Q&A with your question on our website. So it looks like there are no additional questions that are coming through. Just wanted to Abby, if you can take us to the last slide. Thank you for joining us today. We're obviously very excited about this funding announcement. Very excited about and thankful to DDAP for this funding to be able to support this work across Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we had more than 50 people join this webinar, so obviously a lot of interest in this work. And really want to thank you for taking the time today to come and join us, hear more about the Improving Justice System responses to SUD funding announcement. Hope that this was helpful and answered your questions. But again, if you have additional questions after today's webinar, feel free to email us at the ra-pccd-ocijsi at pa.gov resource account. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.